Fáilte go raibh mille agus tá sé bhealach charám go ndéanamh a leithéide. Agus go dtí seo má bhí rialchas a bégéist bhí sé diontaigh na cólachtaí féin. Agus I dtí siúd á thocra céir a bhí le feiceáil is nach rá le feiceáil na man hóisialta. I have to say that I welcome the introduction of this bill and the introduction of a proper regulatory framework to deal with the spread of harmful online content. And I do accept this is very complex. Because on one hand, you have the right to free speech, but that always has to be moderated, and it cannot be given without limit. Now, one thing that I didn't like up to now was that the people who decided what went up or came off actually was the companies themselves. And I thought that that was a totally invidious and totally unacceptable situation. And the ordinary person had no way of, if wrong decisions, of appealing those or dealing with them or appealing to the political system because it was being done by private companies. And therefore, I really welcome the idea of the Online Safety Commissioner who will oversee the regulatory framework of online safety and who will make the safety codes. I think we have to look at the whole issue, of course, of media in our society. And on one hand, I absolutely welcome, some of the established media, of course, don't like the idea that you can circumvent their mediation of the news and you can put the news up yourself. And as long as it's legal and as long as it's in good taste and isn't derogatory of people, etc., 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 I think there's a great... It reminds me of 130 years ago, the plethora of pamphlets that were issued by people who couldn't get into the mainstream media, many of them in this country, many of them by people such as James Connolly, who were putting forward a message that was maybe not the establishment message at the time and was not likely to have been published in either the Irish Times, the Freeman's Journal or the Irish Independent of the time. And, yeah, well, agreed, some of us don't get as much publicity as others around here, but that's the way it is. But there is, in my view, a great democratic element to this that I welcome. But on the other hand, I do believe that mainstream media has a significant role to play. But again, I think we need to adjust all of that into the realities of modern Irish society. And there's one element of this that I'd like to talk about, Minister, and that is that I understand in the channel there was an amendment put forward that wasn't accepted but that you were sympathetic to, that would make sure that public funding was made available to the commercial radio stations that do public content that is in the public interest. And I don't believe that, for example, RT have a monopoly of public interest. So I'll give a simple example. If you've got current affairs on RT and you have local current affairs at the same time on a local radio station that is focusing on the issues, national and local, of that area, why is one heavily subsidised and the other not subsidised at all? I think local radio plays a huge part in our society, provides a very, very positive role, and there's three elements to it. Well, four elements. One, that they do get paid for because they can go to vision, and that is for documentaries, etc. But current affairs, no. News, no. Even the death notices, which are very important in rural areas, certainly, they're not covered. The second one that's not covered is current affairs, and the third one that's not covered is local sport. Indeed, to me, these are all public service broadcasting, as much as public service broadcasting as if RTE are showing some World Cup soccer game. I have nothing against them doing those things. And therefore, I believe it's time that, not because they're commercial, but because they're local, because they're providing basic fundamental services and there's nobody else to do it, that funding would be provided for them. I would also say, in the 1 minute 51 seconds I have, But I do think it's time too that it should and allowance the Gaelge Chuile Law. Éistí an go réalta le réad na Gaeltachta agus tíide ceithir. Go nionn cínte gofuil corran na féin go thuairt gon bheonnach sin sa bobbal seo. Agus go gurí céitad an áire de leataobh as ciste RTE go gaiise do thuairt go réad na Gaeltachta. Agus go dúirí cisteocht cheart go tíide ceithir. Tá sé codíor céanna nó níos tíre chláir dhéanana trí Gaeilge na mar tá sé é dhéanana trí Bhéarla. Ach ag an am céanna tá an cisteocht atá RTE a fáil leis na chláiricha céanna chur amach. A bhád éireann níos mó agus níla déanana coilge Morning Ireland mar hampla agus breanmhar a bhuireann atá plé le sin le heis an drama tá plé le áhhaidin a réad na Gaeltachta le feicáil go bhfuil dhá phobal ann. Agus go ceann amháin a fáil achfanín ó bhád níos mó ná an pobal eile gur magat.